Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, artists, you name it, all over the world of crypto and blockchain. And today I have, you guessed it, another amazing guest. All my guests are amazing. This man is the CEO of MatterFi, and I'm going to pronounce his name for you. It's Michal Pospieszalski.
Pospieszalski. There you go. That's pretty
I,
good.
well, Michal, thank you for joining the show today. Welcome.
Awesome. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining me. So let's kick things off and ask you first: what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Well, what I'm doing now is trying to make unbreakable software, and my background is I've been breaking software since I was 15. So I've been a white hat hacker and sort of breaker of stuff, and then reinventor of the stuff in a white hat way for my whole career, right? So my sort of the way my brain works and my psychology is that I want to break something to make it better. Like, so I found like the perfect job for me, which is, oh, look, everything's broken. All this crypto is being stolen every day. How do I fix that? Right. So like some of the sort of highlights of what I did in the past, I wrote an intelligence uh, software agent for the U.S. Navy. That was a $5 million project that I did in the 2000s. I've hacked everything from voting machines to websites to embedded systems. Most of my clients were, high security space clients. So the government, for example, is one, obviously, and then also like gaming, gambling, et cetera, right? So I've hacked things like slot machines, very interestingly. And pretty much most of the stuff I know I can't talk about because it's all under NDA because it's all white hat, right? So the way white hat hacking works is that you're hired not as an outsider by some black hat institution, or you're not doing it on your own. You're hired by the people that want you to analyze their own software and find all the issues and then fix them, right? So that's my background. And then I really got into inventions and stuff. And at this company, I wrote 9 patents, which is now a total of 15 inventions, both domestic and worldwide, that are all solving problems in the security space for crypto, but also fintech in general. So I would say that MatterFi is a new security company. And our mission is to help everybody make all of finance easier and way more secure to use, right? So that's where we're at.
I'm trying to think if I've ever interviewed a white hat hacker. I know I've interviewed hackers. Um, I think there's different types, right? I kind of want to get the lay of the land. I was going to ask you this, but now
Yeah,
that
I mean, I can tell you. Well, there's black hat. There's black hat and white hat, right? And if you go to DEF CON, it's both. I presented at DEF CON one time, one of our card wallets, because we have a new patent pending hardware wallet that's hopefully well nigh unpenetrable. Also, it works like PayPal. You just type in a name and you can send crypto to anybody. Mm. So black hats are people that would, their job is to generally like exploit the world, right? So they're the guys, doing the drainers, writing those tools. And white hats, and you know about black hat activity because it generally makes the news. Whereas white hat activity very rarely makes the news because almost all the things that we find are fixed before they make the news. And they never really, the point of it is for it to not make the news, right? Occasionally there are laws in the US that allow white hat analysts to find a problem independently. Like, so say I'm interested in a piece of software and I want to analyze it for security. And then I have the opportunity to tell the author of that software, hey, I found a vulnerability. And before we publish the vulnerability, you guys should fix it, right? So there is a process for sort of like gray area hacking where you're a little bit black, a little bit white. Me professionally, I've only ever done white stuff. Interesting enough, I did try to get the mafia tried to recruit me one time, which was like a hilarious. It was like the scene out of The Godfather. Like that actually happened. Like they were like, "We need you to delete some records from some government systems," and I politely declined. Uh, So so that's a thing that did happen. But doing good is very important to me, and that's why I started MatterFi. So that's a little bit of my story, right? And the reason I'm attracted to hacking is just like I like to break stuff, but I want to do it in a positive way, which is why I went white hat.
Very cool. Very cool. So MatterFi, what MatterFi is all about, and then I believe that you have some recent news updates. I just want to check to see what's going on.
Yeah, so we are now, this was just announced yesterday. We are providing all the digital custody tech for Equibank, which is obviously a neobank that is fairly well known in the crypto space. And I know the CEO, Brad, fairly well. And he gets what it is that we do and why it's sort of better. So that's news. But then we have even bigger news. There's some Fortune 500 companies that have acquired our tech that are very traditional fintech. Like you'd be surprised when you hear the names, but I can't tell you them yet because that press release is probably not going to be out for a month or so. So it's in the works. And then obviously we have some regular crypto clients who are providing a wallet for SwissFortress, for Space Dogs token, for Casper chain as well. So I think we should probably just jump into what it is that we do because we're like, well, what is this? What is this miracle technology, right? Uh, let me jump into that real quick, and which I think is just kind of in line with the questions you have for me. But so essentially, we've created new security tech that's really easy to use that makes all of crypto work like PayPal, but it's real crypto, right? So in our system, like you can go to SwissFortress.com, download the wallet, you can register for a name in the beta, and then this name that you have, you can post on your Instagram, and you can receive any crypto that the wallet supports worldwide, any token. So right now we support Ethereum and a bunch of the Bitcoin chains, plus all the ERC20 tokens. And in the beta, it works on test nets, but we'll be in production here in Q3 shortly. And that name lets just receive any crypto, but no one knows how much crypto you received, right? So it's not like unstoppable domain names or unstoppable domains or ENS, right? Because what those things do is you register for a name and then it says, give us your receive addresses. And then we're going to store them in this magic contract in the sky that anybody can read. So it's like trivial for me to find out like how much crypto a guy has. So like any ENS name, I can look up, how much money they've transacted and what their current balance is in about 2-3 minutes with not even a hack, but you can just do it with a Trust Wallet or Edge or any of the wallets that support those protocols. Because when you set up a new transaction, you don't even have to get all fancy and like try to find their name in the smart contract. All you do is you just set up a transaction, that name, and it'll show you the receive address. And then you just look up the receive address on any chain, and then you see what their activity was. So it's horribly unprivate, and it doesn't actually solve any major fintech problems, right? So there's huge vulnerabilities in those systems, and that's the reason why, like, Goldman Sachs isn't going to use ENS or unstoppable domains or any of this stuff. It doesn't make any sense for them to do that because there is zero privacy. It's like, everybody knowing how much money you got in your bank account, and it's associated with generally what's personally identifiable data, like the name, an unstoppable domain name username, right? So that's all broken, right? So we fixed it. And in our system, you can just send the name, and between me and my recipients or people I'm sending money to, or people are sending money to me, it's just like PayPal. And you don't have to understand receive addresses at all. You just type in the name and it just works. And it's all a combination decentralized, centralized. And it's essentially, we're guaranteeing that it'll work forever, right? Like that's, as long as computing exists and blockchain exists, it'll keep working. So that is one of our major features. And then because of that layer that we've created, which is based off of BIP 47. So Justice Ranveer, one of our employees, co-founders, chief architect, he invented BIP 47. And then what I did is, and that was pay codes for Bitcoin, right? So that was like, hey, here's the single number that you use to compute each other's receive addresses, essentially. But what I did is I said, well, look, the number is cool, but still a number, and people are still going to get it wrong. Why don't we just make it like PayPal? right? So that's what we did. So it's just names sent to name, right? Um, the second thing we did is we made it encrypted worldwide chats, peer-to-peer, end-to-end encrypted. MatterFi can't read any of the messages. It's like MatterFi doesn't know the balances or what people are doing with the wallets we create for our customers. Our customers are all businesses, so we're not a B2C, we're a B2B, but we don't know what the B2Bs are doing, and we also don't know what the customers at the B2B are doing, and neither do the customers, right? So it's truly decentralized. But we do have full KYC. So the people in that transaction can prove their identity to each other. So we have a cryptographic protocol around that. So now you can have an atomic swap, for example, or a DeFi contract that understands KYC. So you can have a fully compliant with KYC Uniswap. So that's one of the things that we're building that's on top of this wallet layer. So like the wallet layer I described is basically like the fundamentals of what it is that we do, because you have to have those things for all the advanced stuff to work. So, for example, in Atomic Swap, you have a big problem, right? Because Atomic Wallet and these other Atomic Swap protocols, the idea of Atomic Swap, meaning that like me and you agree to trade two assets, and then when we trade those assets, we're basically locking up some assets on chain, and then we sign an instrument where both the transfers happen from me to you and you to me, or none of them happen. That's why it's called an atomic swap. Either both sides of the transaction happen or none of it happens, right? So this is just related to the principle of atomicity in software writing, where there are certain critical parts of code that you just need to occur all at once, or in a certain sequence. Otherwise, the software doesn't work, right? So, but the problem with atomic swap is you don't really know who your counterparty is. In fact, you don't know who your counterparty is in CeFi either, right? Because who knows who's controlling that address that the money's coming from, or that address that the money's getting withdrawn to, which is, of course, how billions in funds have already been stolen, right? So it's the classic SIM hack off Coinbase, which also, by the way, was done to me. Of course, I had nothing in my Coinbase, but I was going to Burning Man like 4 years ago, and right the day before I'm literally driving, my rented trailer into the burn with my rented truck, because everything you take to the burn is going to get messed up. But anyway, um, and like all of a sudden my phone stops working, and I'm just like, what the hell, and I find out like like right before I get there, I check in the hotel and I'm like undoing the SIM hack. But in the 4 hours that they had my phone, they hacked into my Coinbase. And of course, they put in their receive address to attempt to steal some money, but there wasn't any money there. So why is that possible, right? Why is that a thing at all? Like, why can't I just take my wallet and connect it straight to a custody system? Like, why is there a username and password? Why is all this web crap between me and the money I'm depositing? Like, that's not the case with a bank app, right? Like, if you open up your Wells Fargo app, there isn't some website you got to go to for it to work. You open it up on your phone, you do your username and password, what have you, and then you have access to your funds. Well, what if we did all that with cryptographic proofs for all of crypto and made custody work that way too? So that's what our wallet does. It actually will connect directly to a custody system that obviously we made, because to do this, you have to have an off-chain protocol based on cryptographic proofs. And there is no username and password. You're logging in with your hardware wallet, and then you see your off-chain balances, and you can deposit, withdraw, and the custody system, just like the wallets that I talked about at the beginning, knows all your receive addresses on every chain, knows how to compute them deterministically. Therefore, your money can't be stolen. The money that you deposit in is going to come from you, and the system knows it's you because of the KYC side of it. Now, third-party observers do not. And then on the flip side, when you withdraw, you sign an off-chain instrument for the withdrawal. The money automatically comes back to you, and it can't be stolen, can't be phished, can't be SIM hacked, none of that. So it's like there's a direct relationship between your on-chain private keys, except now they also control your off-chain funds. They're in custody, and your funds in DeFi and everywhere, right? So it becomes a far, far, far more secure system than anything else in existence today. That was a lot. So hit me with questions.
You covered like 4 questions of mine, which is great. Thank you. I'm trying to compare you to PayPal. Now, when
Okay.
I got my distribution from Celsius, it went to PayPal, right?
Yeah.
From Stripe PayPal. What I like about PayPal is There's a couple things I like about it. One is no one can hack it, or like they have a record of like somebody steals from me. Like unlike other wallets, they don't. Right, so that's good. The bad part is that one day that I wanted my money. I went to the city to buy a present for my wife to get to withdraw, and that particular day, PayPal was down, so I couldn't get my sell some Bitcoin and buy my wife a present.
Yeah.
So that was a positive that no one can hack, doesn't hack, no one hacks it, and the negative is I can't get it out. Right, so I'm trying to see how you compare to PayPal, what you do better, and why we should trust your platform more than the PayPal one.
Okay, so first question is the trust question, right? So as we go through beta and production, I think people will trust us more once they use it more, right? But answer it architecturally, like technically, why is it that, first of all, what is different, right? Because there's differences that, and it's really up to the user to decide what's better. So first of all, um, none of our wallets, like, so we make these wallets for customers. None of them so far are centralized finance companies, although now we're getting clients like Equibank, Equifi that are centralized finance companies, and there are traditional banks, right? So our tech works both in a pure decentralized mode and also in a centralized mode, right? So the first thing is the wallet does not need to have some server up to operate, right? It'll just turn on because it's like MetaMask in that sense, right? And then it will let you transfer funds to other users, and there's multiple ways we do that infrastructure, and it's basically something that's never going to be down, right? It's not a thing. It's like as if for us to be down, Bitcoin would have to be down, or Ethereum would have to be down, right? You'd have to have this massive internet outage or a massive, huge, group of servers or miners or accelerators all going away at once for our wallet to not function. So because it's decentralized, you still have the benefit of the send to name. So it works like PayPal, but it's not PayPal in the decentralized mode, right? So that's, I think, the first answer to your question is like, oh, PayPal was down, you couldn't get anything, right? So we wouldn't work that way. The second thing you said, which is that PayPal isn't generally hacked, which is not true. Like actually, PayPal accounts are hacked all the time, and there's a blatant amount of theft and fraud and all these systems because of the username and password thing, right? So in our system, there is no username and password. You're actually using your private key to do all the logging in. And every time there's an off-chain transaction or on-chain transaction, you're signing with your private key as if it was a Bitcoin transaction. So imagine that the custody system, in this case, the CeFi in this case, acts like a little bit like a miner, is that it won't do anything with your money until it sees a cryptographic proof, which then vastly reduces the amount of theft and fraud. Because now to steal your money, the attacker has to have your private key, not just your username and password, which means that phone stealing, for example, doesn't work at all. Also, it means phishing doesn't work at all, right? And notice that almost all the drainers, like if I was to just say, okay, what's the single vulnerability on the internet that's causing all the theft and fraud? It's phishing. Like that's why we're constantly getting phished, right? Like every day you get random messages in your Telegram from like, somebody in Asia or wherever. If you're in Asia, obviously get them from other places, but like the point is you you're constantly, the phishing attempts are, if you're in tech, like are 10 a day, right? And in your email, there's like so much phishing that like you just like delete, delete, delete. Oh, here's a message from Docu, whatever, right? And it's really just more phishing. And all these things are just attempts to drain, right? So like and one of the things that they fish with is obviously PayPal, right? We detected a large PayPal transaction, log in here, or we detected a large Wells Fargo transaction, log in here, or you need to sign these stock option agreements for DocuSign, right? And they get really clever with it. They're like in there figuring out like what kind of company you are and what kind of documents your people would fall for the most, right? I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So I don't think it's true that PayPal can't be hacked. I also don't think it's true that our platform can't be hacked, but it's just way harder to do, right? So that's the second difference. And then the third difference is, okay, how does our CeFi work versus PayPal CeFi? Well, PayPal is just a piece of software with no cryptographic proofs, meaning that like when you're in, oh, look, I got balloons. The AI, yay. I don't know why that, why, if you're just listening to the podcast, a bunch of balloons just came up on the video feed. It's a new Mac feature. I leave it on for comedic moments because it gets it so wrong. Like I'll do a thumbs down, they'll do a thumbs up. I'll be like, things are broken. Yay, balloons.
It's
Anyway,
funny.
the third thing is the CFI. So PayPal is a CFI platform. So like if it's out, you're not going to be able to do anything. If it's down, you're not going to be able to do anything, right? Or they can lock your account out. Now in our system, we can on the CFI side, we could also like the custodian that's operating our software could say no to a transaction. We make it extremely difficult though for them to steal the money. Like it's really hard. So that it's one of those things. I'm not going to get into how we do this because it's a whole. I mean, maybe you want to ask me the question later, but like we prevent attacks like Mount Gox, FTX. These are inside jobs as well. But the biggest difference between us and PayPal and this how the CFI works is that when you log into PayPal, you lose the app, you're basically just logging in, and then it says this is the software just says this is user Mehow. Now make some RPC calls to move some money, right? So from a technical point of view, it's just software talking to other software, and basically once you're logged in, the server just trusts you, and you can do whatever you want, right? And so there's a million vulnerabilities in that, on the inside and the outside, and there's been a lot of money stolen due to that model, essentially, and in voting machines, this is true, absolutely, because just there's really all the security is crunchy and on the outside. On the inside, there is no security, and that's why people wonder if like their votes are really being counted. And I've done a lot of white hat voting analysis. In fact, I would say that I'm probably one of the most experienced people in that field. Period. But and I can't talk about any of this, by the way, other than generally, which is what I'm doing now. So the issue is there's no cryptographic proofs, right? So you have this extra layer of unreliability and security vulnerabilities that happen. Now, generally speaking, it works and people use it. But if you could add cryptographic proofs to it and say get a proof of the funds you have off chain every time you transact, that would be better, right? So like in the case of our system, if the custodian goes down, all the users know what their off-chain balances are, and they have cryptographic proof of that. So if all their money disappears, all of a sudden they have proof that they had it there. Whereas if your money disappears from PayPal, like, who's to say that it was there in the first place at all, right? You got a screenshot or something, right? So it's just it's a fundamentally different way of doing the security, right? And it's most visible in preventing the attacks and increasing the reliability when you're dealing with the CFI side. On the DeFi side, we have functionality that PayPal doesn't have at all, like on-chain KYC, for example, right? So now you can transact with somebody on-chain, buy a car from them, and get a cryptographic proof of who they are before you transact, so you're not committing money laundering, or at least you did your best to prevent that, right? Because right now the tech tools for that don't exist. Does that answer your question?
It does very well, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I do want to dive into, I'd love to have the time to dive into that technically how it works. I want to back up about 40,000 feet though.
Okay, sounds good.
And talk about Burning Man. No.
Have you
you
been?
know, you said fishing. I guess time.
Yeah.
You believe that the future of passwords is going away, right? So what are the better options available for the average users? I don't want to get mired in the muck of the details, but for the average users who just are used to typing in a password today, what options are going to be available for them going forward, and why are they better?
Well, so the problem with username and password is there is a database of the hash of your password sitting at the server you're trying to log into, right? So, and generally there's a cache of the password sitting in the memory of the devices that you're on, right? So like, for example, your phone has a cache of all your passwords, your computer has a cache of your passwords in Safari. So people are very used to these things, right? And ultimately, like, okay, so let's talk about that hash. What is the hash? And I'm not, that's as technical as I'm going to get, but I think people should understand this. So like, say I save a password like Smurf Neblin, right? Now, that password is not going to be stored as Smurflemblin in plain text on the server, right? What the server does is it's going to, when I register for that password, it's going to hash it, meaning there's a one-way transformation that takes that into a unique string, usually of 256 bits, right? And whatever the string is, it can be as long as a book, or it can be as short as a single word or even a letter or whatever. When you hash it, you're always going to get the same hash. So if you hash A one time, you're going to get hash X. If you hash A again, you're going to get hash X again. Now, if I type in the characters A and B, I'm now going to get a completely different hash. So what happens is username and passwords are all stored this way, right? At least the passwords are for sure. And if somebody guesses your password, then they know the hash, right? And so there's these entire huge databases out on the dark web of like, these are all the known passwords. In fact, there's services where you can look up like which of your password hashes have already been stolen, right? And so that makes it so if you use the same password everywhere, the second one gets compromised on one website, then now everybody knows what it is on every other website. And the reason they know that is like, okay, if we know that AB is this hash and that's been hacked on this website, we know both AB and the hash. And now we see that hash like 30 other websites. We know you've been using the same password in 30 other websites. So little things that people don't understand about passwords. This is why people are always like, use a new password on every website, right? So then naturally you have this giant nightmare of keeping track of all this stuff. Like I use a password encryptor called Password Safe, which is open source, very good piece of software. And I also cache in my Safari just because it's convenient and also secure. And but the reason we have all these passwords is because of all these vulnerabilities, right, associated with passwords. And then you're always like, oh, I forgot my password. Now I got to reset it, right? So, and people think this is the only way, right? Because this is how it's been working since the dawn of computing technology. We're like, well, how are we going to secure all this stuff? Well, let's use username and passwords, right? And people think, okay, well, we're just going to be stuck with this forever, right? And really, that doesn't make any sense because there's way better ways to do it. And so what we're suggesting is that just like in like MetaMask, there's no username and password. There's your private key is essentially stored on a hardware device or locally on your machine. The server has no copy of it. It doesn't have a copy of the hash. It doesn't have any of these things I'm talking about. You just sign with your private key. And ultimately, at that point, the security model changes from managing this sort of server and client relationship between usernames and passwords to just keeping your private key secure, which you can do easily a bunch of different ways. You can secure it with biometrics, you can secure it with a PIN, right? You can do things like some other wallets are doing in terms of doing like a multi-party computation around that. So that just changes the security model. And the way it works is you can now, if you're doing that, there is no reason to just use that private key just for crypto transactions. Like, okay, so let me explain that. So in crypto, right, like to spend money, you have to sign a instrument with your private key, which proves that these funds that you're sending, you can essentially decrypt because they were sent to your public key, right? And this public key can be public information, but it's not like a hash. It doesn't really reveal anything about you, right? And this public key relationship that the miner understands is like everybody knows how it works and still not breakable, right? So even an AI can understand this is how a miner works, and it's not breakable. Like what you need to break crypto would be quantum computing, which eventually will happen, but the issue there is then we just up the algorithms from 256 bits to 512 or 1K or whatever, and now the quantum computer is going to struggle with that. So we can reliably say that crypto, the basic algorithms of it will be safe. The basic idea will keep working forever in terms of asymmetric cryptography. And that's how Bitcoin works, right? It's just based, like really, if you use this Satoshi white paper, the stuff I'm talking about is literally one paragraph, one diagram. Like he's just like, yep, we're just attaching money to public keys that then spender is going to prove that they have access to that by encrypting something with their private key, and then we're going to decrypt it with the public key that everybody knows, and now we know it's their money, therefore they can spend it and send it to the next guy. That's it. that's the entirety of blockchain. And then the other problem he solved was the double spend problem, which is a few more pages, like 4 more pages. And and then now we've created this amazing thing, right? But that's decentralized money. Well, okay, what if we took those same principles now just applied them to regular computing? Like what if all the client server interactions and all the client, DeFi interactions and all the atomic swaps, everything use this, private key signing infrastructure, right? So that's basically what we've created. And that's my answer to replace the password. And because of the KYC that we attach to our infra, now you can't phish. So, example of that. The reason you can't phish in our system is you can check the credentials of your counterparty, whether that's a custodian or a person, before you transact with them, right? And there's a cryptographic proof of that. Just like the way you avoid phishing is you go to a website, right? And then your VeriSign says, hey, this website's not the real Microsoft.com. It's actually something else because there is a problem with the cryptographic proof. So we took that idea and now made it apply to sort of everything, right? So whether it's a web interaction or not, well, actually in our system there are no web interactions, but or minimal ones. I mean, there's some clients where we have to still do some web stuff because of what they have legacy style, but in an ideal implementation, there is no web stuff. So everything is KYCable, right? So it's easy to just have a model for like, no phishing, because if all your fintech you do inside our wallet, there's no links. So the spammers can send you a million links. Oh, click here, do this, do that. And you're like, I know this is all bullshit because I don't need any of that anymore. Right. Second of all, even inside our system, you can verify the counterparty before you transact with them. And you get cryptographic proof of that. And if there's something wrong, the software warns you, right? Just like a web browser will warn you if like, hey, this is not the real website. So that's how I plan to replace usernames and passwords, or at least see them used way less. And it's essentially taking just a core idea from crypto itself and just making it work everywhere else, which is a considerable software undertaking. We got over 1 million lines of code and 9 patents, but it's a really fun thing that we're doing.
I followed you all the way through. I get it. I like it. I love it. I have a follow-up question on that.
Yep.
It looks like you solved a lot of issues, including that PayPal. What I've done for PayPal, not PayPal, what I've done for Coinbase. You mentioned the Coinbase theft before.
Yep.
I use the vault.
Okay.
What that does is I think it provides me a little bit more protection, but then it also prevents me from doing any trading for 48 hours. So that's the drawback, you know.
Yeah.
But this requires, you said, massive undertaking. You said Burning Man. You said massive undertaking.
It doesn't require Burning Man. I just mentioned that because of the one time I got hacked right when I was going to the burn, which I thought was very clever of the hackers, because they were like, "Oh, this guy's gonna have no cell phone for like a week, so he's not even gonna know we stole his phone," right? And so it's interesting because, of course, there's a database at Burning Man of all the attendees and their cell phones, and that's probably really easy to steal. So, like, somebody, I was like, respect, Black Hat. You guys, this is clever, because there's a lot of people that probably would fall for it. Just and the only reason I didn't, know I knew right away. It's just they seemed to get the timing wrong. Like they were like 4 hours too early because I was late. So, like they didn't know that I was late, right?
Yeah.
Because I had a truck breakdown, and that saved me from the SIM hack. Uh,
So what you're doing is awesome. It's going to require more than just you. It's going to require revolution, right? What's your vision for this revolution?
Well, I mean, we're growing our team. We're doing a Series A. We're now doing marketing. We're doing podcasts. We're doing press releases. I guess we've been in stealth mode for a long time, just because it's like we had to do a lot of tech building before people believed us that the tech was real. And now we're at a point where, we've got public betas. We're getting ready to roll out the custody system to some alpha clients. And, that's done, right? So now I'm focusing on getting the message out and just scaling the infrastructure both internally and externally, right? So like creating um, news hype, if you will, around the ideas, and then doing the social media, doing the podcast, and then doing also scaling up internally the sales team, the tech team capacity, getting more clients, more revenue, et cetera, right? So it's really, I mean, the revolution, I think, is going to come in sort of steps. They're always incremental, but there's some bigger steps. Like we do have some traction with some really big traditional fintechs that will be announced soon, and they're huge. I mean, they're like way bigger than us as a company, but they really like the tech, and they're like, okay, we really love this idea, and we want to give it a shot, right? So I think that's going to really fuel, more buzz and more clients and more deployment. And ultimately, the idea is that what we're making is every wallet we make, like the SwissFortress will work with Space Dogs, will work with the Equify wallet when that exists. They're all running the same protocol. Like there's going to be different features inside of each wallet specific to each environment. But ultimately, the send, the name, the KYC is going to work worldwide, right? So as we're deploying another client, and these are always businesses, now their users will have access to this tech and they'll be able to interact with other users. So eventually we'll have this network effect of users interacting with each other all on the system. And maybe one day it'll become a standard and we'll start taking on other tech companies that want to implement portions of what we're doing as well, right? So that's the vision for the revolution. um, it's kind of like a pedestrian MBA approach, I would say, but ultimately the end result is worldwide financial autonomy for everybody, and far more security and far less hacking. That's my goal, is to just make this way more accessible to everyone and way harder for you to lose your assets while you're using it. And I think that's the essence of the revolution.
I love it. I love it. So I want to thank you very much for coming on the show today. I enjoyed speaking with you. I love listening to you. What your solution is. I think it's great. I look forward to seeing what you guys do. And I have one last question, and it's how can people find out more information about you, about MatterFi, keep up to date of what your news announcements are going to be? How can they become business clients? How can they do any of that?
Yeah, so Michal at MatterFi is my email. You can go to matterfi.com. We have a onboarding form there for clients. Essentially, you can fill out the form and we'll contact you. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'm like Mihacks on Twitter. We also have a MatterFi account on Twitter that's now monitored all the time. So easy ways to get a hold of us. And we have both. We have client opportunities. We have some investment opportunities. They're way more limited in terms of clients right now. We're just taking on pretty much everybody because we have the capacity. If anybody's interested in trying the tech, we're gonna work with you unless you're really unsuited for some reason. But yeah, it's exciting times for us because this was a garage project with like 5 people for a very long time. And then it became more real like 2021. And then it became, really real this year. And we've been through 2 crypto winters with it. So it wasn't like an easy journey to just, develop all this software. Sometimes you have, in the crypto space, sometimes you got like budget and they just, rains from the sky. And other times they're like a year of nothing. Right. So it's been an interesting journey in that sense. But that's how you get a hold of us. And obviously, I always appreciate, client interest, investor interest, just fan interest, like people just interested in the tech. I always appreciate the energy because it's the reason we got to do what we're delivering.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Awesome. Great chatting.